It is Wednesday. You should have made those waiver wire pickups. They should have went through. Hopefully you got the guys that you wanted. Well, welcome to the Fantasy Football Wrap-Up. I'm your host, Blake Randall, with my co-host, Jessy Gary.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is going to be a fairly quick episode, hopefully. You know, we like to ramble on a little bit. We got the gift the gab and a left with the jab. So, what we can talk about first, we'll just get straight to the point. Starts of the week, because I know we can ramble on about this too, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and jump in that steering wheel and guide this ship.
Out of the way.
Yes.
Okay.
So, let's go on and just talk quarterbacks. I got a few listing quarterbacks for myself. I wrote down 4 guys. All right, and and I'm not going to state the obvious guys that we're going to have starting this week. I didn't really want to, say your Tom Brady's,
right?
A few other quarterbacks. Carson Wentz. I feel like Carson Wentz at this point is a must start every week too.
Yeah.
So, what I wrote down for this week, I wrote down Blake Bortles,
Sure,
again at Cleveland.
At Cleveland.
Derek Carr at home against New England. Alex Smith at New York Giants. And then the last one I wrote down was Jay Cutler at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So basically what made me write these guys down is just because of the matchups I like. But the only thing that steered me away from not selecting Blake Bortles as my start of the week is one thing, and it's going to be a very bad day in terms of weather in Cleveland. What's new? It's supposed to rain. 38 degrees is the high on Sunday, as of right now on Wednesday. And I don't think when it's those elements, and there's also a little mix of snow too. So, I'm going meteorologist mode right now. Because you got to factor that in when you have a quarterback that's not that great. Last week, Blake Bortles threw the ball over 50 times. That's something that offense, the Jacksonville does not want to do that.
Does not want.
They do not want to do that at all. Cleveland allows a fairly decent amount of points to quarterbacks, but I feel like it's to Cleveland's advantage just a smidge in this bad weather. It's not going to be like the worst weather, but it's just Cleveland weather.
But it's Cleveland and Jacksonville where it's sunny and humid. So
yeah, and I think and the reason I didn't pick Bortles is it's going to be more of a ground game, I feel like.
Yeah.
So basically,
hopefully
there's no vultures. Hopefully Fournette bounces back.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be Vulture City again. Nobody wants to see Grant get another touchdown, run a big 50-yard touchdown out of nowhere. So basically, I'm just going to get to it. So my quarterback of the start of the week is Alex Smith.
Okay.
I think he's going to get back on track. The bye week should help them out. I feel like it clears their mind, help them get mentally back in the game where they needed to be. Especially, he's going to get. Hopefully, I feel like he's going to get back into the mindset of the earlier in the season how he was. He was basically your MVP for the first 6 weeks or so.
I'm interested to see how the Giants defense comes out because last time they played against a quality opponent was the Denver Broncos when they were still kind of soaring. They came out and laid a smack down on that candy.
Denver was not ready for that either. I don't think anybody was ready for that. But then nobody was ready for San Francisco to do the exact same thing to the Giants.
I just feel like the Giants play up to teams that are up and they play down to teams that are down.
Right.
So I don't know. I think they like the challenge even though their team, I think they kind of know that their team is sinking and their playoff hopes is pretty much gone at this point, safe to say. So I think they're just kind of playing right now for the matchups. So I'm interested to see how they come out.
Yeah. They're not going to bench Eli the rest of the way at all. They won't do that. Eli is the NFL's Iron Man right now at this point. So I like Alex Smith. I think it's a good matchup for all spectrums of that offense pretty much. And then Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr's matchup, but the reason I didn't pick him was just because New England's actually picked it up the last handful of weeks.
Still should be a high-scoring game. Oakland's defense is horrible. Brady's going to put up lots of numbers, and he's got to play catch-up.
Yeah, Brady's an obvious start, so that's why I didn't even say him. And then Jay Cutler, he's been playing pretty decent the last few games.
I've been impressed with the whole offense ever since they let go of Jay Ajayi. Everybody's talking what it is. Even if Jay Ajayi comes out and runs wild against Dallas this week, I don't think it would change my perspective on Adam Gase and what he's done because these other two backs are filling in. Kenyon Drake looks like he belongs in this passing, speed, everything speed, passing NFL. Jay Cutler loves throwing to those guys in the flats, and I think he's got Julius Thomas healthy and finding him in the end zone and all over the field, and he's got a parade of weapons out wide. I would start Jay Cutler if the matchup's right. Actually, I'm picking him up and starting him this week, so I'm interested to see how he does against a terrible hurt Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think, and I like your odds at getting them too, because I don't think anybody else is going to.
No, that's the most important. That's my favorite part, is that I feel like I can give up nothing for Jay Cutler.
Yeah,
because he's Jay Cutler.
All right, for you though, who's your start of the week for quarterback?
Mine's going to be Big Ben. I went kind of back and forth between him and Cutler, and then I actually feel like I'm not going to talk about Brady. I had Brady down as somebody that I liked. Obviously, he's going to put up a lot of points on this Oakland defense. Drew Brees, I feel like, is going to at some point, somebody has to say, look, we're not going to let the Saints run rampant on us, and let's commit an extra guy to the box, even if it is against Drew Brees, a Hall of Famer, which I think he will make them pay, which is also going to lead to my receiving start of the week. So my start of the week for quarterbacks is Big Ben.
Yeah, and
surprisingly, because
I think it's going to be a good matchup for them in terms of like skill players as well too. Tennessee right now. The good thing for Big Ben is he's at home, and everyone knows he plays good at home.
Big Ben at home.
It's a Thursday night game,
important.
So he's not going to embarrass himself too much.
No,
either. It's primetime football. I know a lot of these players, like you was telling me, the other day,
they complain.
They don't like playing in the short stretch.
It's hard to prepare
to the Thursday night game.
It's hard to prepare.
But I think for a lot of guys, a lot of people are wanting to see Antonio Brown bounce back. Yeah. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster has been killing it for big plays.
Him and AB are eating. Martavis Bryant, I think, is starting to buy in a little bit more. You've seen the tight end there get open for it.
They were trying to get him the ball. They were doing what they could to get Bryant the ball. Brown should bounce back. It's a great matchup for it's a great matchup for the Steelers wide receivers. But Big Ben at home, I like your pick right there.
Yeah, I think this is finally the week he blows up. And he knows that defense so well. It's a Dick LeBeau-led defense. How long he was with the Steelers for 20 years?
Yeah, it's like
that double A-gap blitz. Ben knows when it's coming, where it's coming from, and I think he's going to.
There's a lot of familiarity there. So, with Todd Haley playing the offense, I'm sure they went up at it and practiced a few years back.
Big Ben has seen this defense many, many times.
Hopefully, he shows up and realizes that he's seen this defense many, many times too.
I think so.
But it's it's not the Steelers' defense that he probably went up practicing against.
Right.
Tennessee's defense isn't that good.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to running backs.
Sure.
I'll let you start this one first.
I like Abdullah from the Bears. It was kind of bouncing back and forth between him and Gordon. After seeing the Saints run rampant on the Buffalo Bills, I have to like the matchup with Gordon. Ever since they've lost Marcel Darius, which I know if you're following the podcast, that's been a storyline of mine for a few weeks now. Their running defense has just not been the same. And even when he was there, he didn't have huge stats. He didn't have lots of tackles and tackles for losses, but just him being on the field and having the game plan for him was great for their defense. Since he's been gone, they've been getting demolished on the ground. So I like Gordon if you have Gordon, but my start of the week is Abdullah from the Bears. And all the division games.
He's playing the Bears.
Yeah, he's playing against the Bears. And they're going to Soldier Field. Every time he plays a division opponent, he's had 20 or plus carries. He played against Minnesota about 4 weeks back, had 20 carries, 109 yards and a touchdown. That's hard to do against that Minnesota defense. They're trying. They're having a concerted effort to get the run game going and sticking to it when it's division games. Jim Bob Cooter knows what's going on down there. They played Green Bay a few weeks back. He had 21 touches for 57 yards and a touchdown. Last week they played at Cleveland, which is a pretty good run defense. And he goes 11 carries, 55 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think they're getting him more involved in the ground game. Detroit's smart. They know that they could be playing football with us, with my Aaron Rodgers Packers being out. They know that it's between them and the Vikings. And if they're going to play football in January, late December, January, they need to run the ball.
Yeah, and I feel like they realize, they don't have to always try to win games by just passing the ball at all.
They have to. And I mean, getting Decker back, their left tackle, who was out the first 8 weeks, and he's just now starting to come on, I think, and probably fill it. Huge upgrade left tackle.
Yeah, usually it's the opposite way around for the Lions. They go, they start off strong, healthy, and then they end up getting hurt towards the end, and that's what hurts
their
Stafford
backs,
in the
especially. Right? Yeah.
For me, my start of the week at running back, I like the matchup with Kenyon Drake against Tampa Bay. I just feel like they're getting him more involved in that Miami offense. Mm-hmm. Like you were saying earlier, once they let go of Jay Ajayi, they really felt like they've always knew they had something in Kenyon Drake, and they were just waiting to
looks explosive.
Let him just go
fast.
And so he's been getting more involved in that offense. He's been getting more touches than Damian Williams too. And he's a lot better pass catcher. Damian Williams is not that good of a running back at all. He's just there just to get a paycheck, basically, at this point. He's just to fill a roster spot,
I think he's
in my
just
opinion.
the experienced veteran who they just kind of trust to start right now.
He's not even that experienced, in my opinion, either, though. He's just been on the team for a few years. Yeah. And then other running backs I wrote down, too. I mean, I liked Melvin Gordon's matchup against Buffalo, like you were saying, too. You know, they do not have a run defense at all up there. But the thing is, you know, people might say, well, what about Eckler? You never know. I mean, San Diego's definitely going to utilize both running backs now. You can't just roll with one after the other. After the backup on their team went off, he outscored a healthy Melvin Gordon basically.
And I think Melvin Gordon was getting a huge workload in the beginning of the season, and I mean, from a fantasy perspective, I was loving it. But I'm talking about he was getting close to 30, 33 touches a game, counting, you know, his targets and his carries, and his snaps per game was out the roof.
And that's always something you should look for in fantasy. Is
I loved it.
You want high volume players.
I also think that this could help Melvin Gordon out down the road, taking a little bit of pressure off of him too.
Yeah, because I mean he does. You know, like last year, I mean it took a toll on him towards the end of the season. You know, when you do so much in that run game, and you know this Eckler can help relieve Gordon, but Gordon's a 3-down back.
Yep.
Eckler is a guy that just comes in and just lets Gordon get a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, change of pace. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so I wrote down Melvin Gordon just because I like that matchup. Right. So I mean, hopefully the Chargers running backs can step it up. You know, again this week. I like Jerick McKinnon against the Rams. Rams are usually allow just some big play guys. They let any running back just have a big play on them all the time. The Rams, you know, somehow find a way to win. And then, it becomes where the run game comes irrelevant, but they allow so much from the get-go with the run game.
Yeah.
And I could wrote Latavius Murray down right here, but Murray's not that – I don't think the way Murray plays, I don't think it's going to really –
break out.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like McKinnon's like a better option for them just because, you know, when you get a running back that can like run and catch the ball, I feel like the Rams are kind of like,
right,
standoffish a little bit in terms of like their linebacking core in terms of defending a running back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he has a good matchup. Murray's a good guy too to start this week, but I like McKinnon more this week because they kind of like flip flop in terms of like who has a better game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like last week Murray had the better game, and then McKinnon should have I feel like it's a pattern.
Right.
So I'm just kind of rolling with that too. And then Doug Martin, I wrote down Doug Martin. I feel like he could bounce back.
He's got to do something. It's been a while since we've heard Doug Martin's name.
I mean, Charles Sims is actually doing it. It's back to some, you could say, deep target fantasy relevance. You know, if you're in a deep league, I think Charles Sims should be on your team. But, I mean, if you're like in a 10, 12-team standard league or whatever, Charles Sims isn't the guy you want to own. But Doug Martin is, you're going to own him because of his name right now. And if he's not going to perform, step aside, let Charles Sims come in there. Because, I mean, if Charles Sims is healthy, he's a good running back.
Yeah, and it's going to help getting Jameis and Evans back on the field.
Yeah. So, all right. So, what I'm going to go on to next, we're going to go on to wide receivers, and I'll just go on and state my start of the week. That is Sterling Shepard for the New York Giants against the Chiefs. I just feel like they're not going to have Shepard line up completely opposite of Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters stays on one side of the field usually. He does not shadow. And the other corners in Kansas City are just trash.
Yep.
Especially when you don't have Eric Berry back there doing everything else. Everybody takes advantage of the other side of the ball that Marcus Peters is not on.
Right.
I think they're going to have a decoy receiver out there. They might let Roger Lewis just go up and play the one, and then let Sterling Shepard do everything else. And that's when, and Evan Ingram could be lining up out there too.
Right.
So I think Sterling Shepard's going to carry on from the big week he had previously against San Francisco. And then he's going to, should have another big game against the Chiefs this coming week. I see him actually getting in the red zone, too, because he is going to be a heavily targeted player, and Eli will rely on him or Ingram in that red zone area.
Right. I agree. My guy that I like Marquise Lee at Cleveland because of the matchup, and he's been on fire here of late. So I think if you have Marquise Lee, you're starting, but my start of the week is going with Ted Ginn. I talked about Breeze earlier and somebody having to come down, and they got to do something about stopping the run. You cannot let them run you can't let them run 40 times in a ball game and hold the entire ball and think you're going to win the game. So Washington's been pretty good at stopping the run. They really have to commit and stop the run here with Drew Brees, and
that's going to be a challenge.
It's crazy thinking. That's a pick your poison. That's a pick your poison kind of thing. Do you want to shell out for the run? Do you want to shell out for the pass? You certainly don't want to be somewhere in between and get beat both ways. That's a tough. I think Ted Ginn's going to light it up this week, especially since the two Vikings receivers both completely destroyed Washington last week. Ted Ginn is
they basically kept him away from for the most of the game.
Yeah.
They kept him away from Norman.
Yeah, and even when they did, the receivers made great body catches. So I think Ted Ginn, lots of upside in this one. He runs lots of crosses and then lots of deeps, and he's going to get hit on both of those routes. I expect him to go over 100 yards upside of a touchdown. Start Ted Ginn, put him in your lineups.
Yeah, I like Ted Ginn. I mean, I even like Michael Thomas too this week. I mean, he actually, finally broke 100 yards.
Yeah.
Last week. So I mean, we'll see how he goes. In this game. I mean, it depends where the Saints line them up.
Yeah.
But I feel like, just the way the Saints play. I mean, there's so much to it. Basically, in that Saints offense minus tight ends because Kobe Fleener's just kind of disappeared and all that. So basically, it's just become a 4-man skill player show with Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, Kamara, and Ingram. And it's been fun to watch the Saints offense, especially with the run game too.
I love
Ingram's
watching
been
it.
a bruiser.
The funny thing about the NFC and these NFC teams is that it seems like every week there's somebody different who's favored to make the Super Bowl. When the Eagles go off, they're the best team in the NFC. They're going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. They have a bye week. Or what was it? The next week, then you hear about last time Zeke played, Dallas has the best team. They had a convincing win. Their defense played outstanding. They did everything they needed to do to win the game and look like the best team in the NFC. Then out goes their left tackle and their running back, and they look like trash. And then last week you come up and you see the Saints run the ball all over everybody and play good defense all year, and they're not even being talked about. And some people say, hold up, can the Saints be the best team in the NFC? Monday Night Football, Cam Newton comes out and balls out. Carolina's defense does more than enough to win the game. Number one defense right now. And you think, is the Panthers for real? There's still so much uncertainty in the NFC. I think the Saints are onto something.
I mean, I've seen sports analysts say that they're the best team in the NFC.
I think so.
I think they're up there with how they've been playing. I mean, Drew Brees isn't having his best year.
I would love,
but they're playing like all around football, and that's something they haven't done in a while because they've been mostly just a pass first, pass second, pass third team.
If it comes down to it, the Saints are going to Philly to play, and you have to watch that run offense against that run defense in Philly. I'm glued to my TV.
Yeah,
that's a dream matchup for me. So we'll see.
Right. And then like other receivers, I wrote down Jarvis Landry against Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, honestly, you can pick any receiver, but Landry's the more consistent receiver for that
Jay's
team.
favorites here lately. Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's like they rotate sometimes, but Kenny Stills has kind of faded away a little bit.
Yeah.
Now that you got Parker back in the mix.
Cutler likes Landry, and he likes Landry on pretty much everything short, intermediate, and then he pretty much is Parker for kind of his big play potential and those crossers. Yeah.
And then the other little group, I didn't write one player down for this one. I wrote a group: Steelers wide receivers against the Titans. I was saying, when you was talking about Big Ben, I feel like the Steelers wide receivers should have a field day. If Big Ben has, keeps everything straight and doesn't go crazy in terms of throwing unnecessary interceptions. Because the first against Indianapolis, first pass of the game for him throws an interception. He was trying to throw it to Martavis Bryant. He looked left to Antonio Brown and then just looked right and threw it. He didn't even really study the right. He just turned right and threw it to Bryant, and they intercepted Pierre Desir intercepted the ball. So hopefully Big Ben just kind of gets his head straight because Steelers did not look good in that Colts game. But yeah. So all right, moving on to tight end. I'll let you go with this one. Who's your tight end of the week?
I like Travis Kelce. Obviously, he's a must-start. He's probably was a top 3 round pick in your league. He's going against the Giants. They've allowed a touchdown in every game. Obviously, the probability factor is with you. You have to start Travis Kelce. My start of the week it's the same thinking method. I'm going Mercedes Lewis, who comes out every once in a while and scores a few touchdowns for you, just, when he feels like poking his head out to play. They're playing Cleveland. Cleveland also, I think the last 6 weeks has allowed us scoring touchdown to tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes Lewis, put him in your lineup.
Yeah.
Because they have a pretty decent run defense. And
Eric Ebron scored.
Eric Ebron scored. Let's go. Holla. Mercedes Lewis is going to get in the end zone. And their defense is pretty good against the run.
He's going to ruin people's fantasy weeks, too.
Gets even better in the red zone.
Like if someone,
probably could, yeah.
Like, if someone randomly just decides to pick him up as a streamlined tight end, and then ends up starting him,
you never
and then
know
he might wreck your world. And you're going to hate life. Or if you're like one of those, if you play the daily fantasy sports,
yeah.
And then you somehow, you see who got first place and they had Mercedes Lewis as their tight end, and the next thing you know, he got 3 touchdowns. That was like, oh, gosh. Yeah. I stopped playing daily fantasy for right now. I just had to take a break. It drives me crazy.
It's very unpredictable this year.
Very. So I'll talk about my tight end. I, of course, wrote down Travis Kelce just because I love the matchup. And Travis Kelce is an absolute monster, but that's an obvious start. He's the best tight end in football right now. The other tight end I wrote down was Cameron Brate. I like his matchup against the Miami Dolphins as well. Fitzpatrick will throw to him as a safety blanket, but that Jets Buccaneers game wasn't pretty.
Who's the starter?
Fitzy's still playing.
Okay.
He's still in there. So my tight end of the week, I wrote down Cincinnati's Tyler Kroft against the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos have just a matchup nightmare because Joe Mixon's not going to be relevant this week. It's just no running back is ever really relevant against the Broncos. Now the Patriots just utilize their pass game a lot with their running backs. That's why Rex Burkhead had a decent game. Deion Lewis had a good game too as well. Nothing mind-blowing or spectacular, but, they will rely on their running backs. But Cincinnati doesn't play like that. They're going to try, but it's not going to work. Just because I don't think they don't have enough depth right there anymore. It's just between Mixon and Giovanni Bernard. A.J. Green, I see this being a bust game for A.J. Green. Just because, Denver's secondary is top-notch still. They're elite as it gets. Yeah. But so I think this was where it leaves Tyler Kroft as the only true safety blanket for Andy Dalton. And it's at Denver. Denver's going to want to – their defense is going to want to step up after last week. That's an embarrassing defeat just because that offense just can't get things going. And it's just crazy, too. I mean, it just shows you how different that offense plays in terms of the Vance Joseph style opposed to Gary Kubiak when he was there. Yeah. And I know they miss Gary Kubiak, too.
Yeah.
So, Tyler Kroft is my start of the week for tight end.
And I keep wanting to say Denver's going to come and have that big bounce back game, but they just got destroyed by the Eagles, and then again last week. And it's just I want them to have that bounce back game, but that offense is holding them back. So
it's real conservative.
Yeah.
It's almost like watching the Rams offense last year.
It's bad when the offense is so bad that even their great defense can't do anything with the team.
No, when you're on the field that long,
it's just
you can't do. You get exhausted when you're playing on the field that long.
Yeah.
I mean, teams are winning the possession battle against Denver, which is crazy to think, but I mean that's what's happening because the offense is on and off the field so quick for Denver. It's just none of those quarterbacks can get anything going. Basically, it's they determined to start in quarterback by saying who had less turnovers.
I seen a meme that was funny earlier a couple weeks ago that said Denver at the beginning of the season, and they had their fans cheering saying, "Our defense is so great, we don't need a quarterback to win a Super Bowl."
Mm-hmm.
And then it says Broncos defense now. Our defense is so great, I wish we had a quarterback so we could win some games or something. Something like that. It was just funny how perspective can change.
Yeah, and it's just. And I think Denver's going to end up getting a new quarterback. I mean, Paxton Lynch is hurt, so that's why he hasn't really been having the opportunity. Trevor Siemian is – I've never been a fan of Siemian. I just think he's crap.
He came out first few weeks and just lit it all on fire.
And it was just a couple easy home games,
and
too.
that was it.
Yeah. And they just have never got back to that way either.
So, but kickers.
Yeah, kickers. I wrote down Chiefs kicker Harrison Buckner.
Mm-hmm.
So they use him a lot. Since he's came in and they picked him off Carolina's practice squad, they have used him and let him kick and kick and kick.
And he's been very accurate. And
he's been great this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been they will use him no matter what the matchup. I mean, people might, when you're looking at kicker, you might there's people out there that just stream kickers and defenses all the time based on the matchup. And I did that last year too. And I just kind of had to quit doing that because it'll drive you crazy. I started to do it at the beginning of this season too a little bit. But Buckner's one of those guys you can just rely on every week though too.
Right. That's how.
I mean, it's just you just never know. Like the Giants' defense has so much potential to slow down an offense, but that offense or their defense, just allows that team to get enough into field goal range, just to get on the other side of the ball or other side of the field.
Right.
So, and then which allows Alex Smith is one of those guys that he's very conservative. So I mean, there's a lot of check downs right there too.
Yeah.
Whereas there's three downs, and then now fourth down, go for a field goal. So that's why I like Buckner.
And their whole field position, they stay on the opponent's side of the field, so that's why they're always available to kick field goals. They have so much speed. The offense is so efficient that it's at least going to cross the midfield. It's going to get you in field goal range nearly every time they have the ball, if not every time they have the ball.
I mean, and it's good to see that they trust their kicker when it's like 50-something yards out.
And their special teams is always putting them in good position. They're always winning the field position battle, which always puts them in range to score points.
Yeah, now it's just, Alex Smith needs to get back to his ways.
Yeah.
The other kickers I wrote down was Brandon McManus against Cincinnati. Denver. Excuse me.
Right.
Denver has used him the last few weeks, and they rely on him because he's been there. Just Denver, might get those breaks where they get the ball down the field just enough, but then they get stopped.
Yeah.
And then McManus has a cannon for a leg.
Yeah, especially at home.
Yeah, especially at home. He can kick it from 60 out.
Yeah. So if you're getting bonuses for those extra long kicks, might be somebody you're looking at for sure.
And the other kicker I wrote down was Will Lutz. I said him last week. He was my star of the week last week. He was the fifth best kicker last week. So I still see him staying in that top 5 range. Washington allows like the 9th most points to kickers. But Saints like to use whatever they have and whatever way they can score. The Saints will do it.
Right.
And they will use their kicker as well too. But I wrote down here Buckner as my top pick for this week.
Okay. My start of the week for kickers is going to be, I like Justin Tucker playing at Green Bay. Usually when a away team travels and plays a decent defense and a pretty decent matchup, the kicker does pretty well. I don't really expect Baltimore or Green Bay to score a lot of points because neither one of their offenses are working very well. But I do expect the Ravens to have the upper hand just because we're just decimated with injuries on both sides of the ball, and we're playing really bad defense. So I think if you have Tucker, you starting. But my start of the week is there's going to be Prater again from Detroit's kicker. He's going down to Chicago to play. Their defense is formidable, but they still allow people to move the ball on them pretty easily. And it's the same kind of situation that their offense isn't that great. Their offense isn't on the field long enough to do a whole lot. Detroit has a great defense. Detroit's going to get Chicago off the field. They're going to stay on the field. They're going to get in field goal range, and Prater's been clutch.
And they trust Prater, too.
They trust Prater from all distances on the field. So I expect Prater to have a very good game.
Yeah. All right, moving on to defenses. I'll let you start.
Yeah, I like Arizona's defense going to Houston because Tom Savage, and then you have Fuller with the ribs injury. Lamar Miller and Hopkins is their only offense. Arizona has a pretty good run defense, and they have Patrick Peterson, so that's what you're looking for there. But my start of the week is going to be Baltimore. My Packers are just struggling on offense. They can't get nothing going. Even when running backs come out to play, they get hurt, and they're out 3 to 6 weeks, like Aaron Jones. And then Ty Montgomery has the real problem. I don't expect him to even finish the game. Jamal Williams comes in. Huntley's not playing well. Bulaga's out, ACL. It just keeps mounting on us. So Baltimore has the number 6 scoring defense in the league. Obviously, they're in our league. They're the number 2 defense overall in fantasy. They've been great, especially when the matchups have been good. So I expect Baltimore's defense to probably, in our league, I probably expect them to go 20 points. They're my start of the week.
All right, and my start of the week is just a very obvious one. I mean, it's hard to pick against it. I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars against Cleveland.
Sweet.
I mean, you got
sweet matchup.
you got the number one defense, and it just like you just should be drooling over this one. Like if you have Jacksonville as your defense, and I had them for like 1 week, and I dropped them.
Me too.
I think I believe I had them the week that they got -1 points against Tennessee.
I think I had them the week they scored 0. I think they scored very little 1 week, and then I had them, and then
I think that they had a bad week against the Rams.
I dropped them,
but
unfortunately.
But Jacksonville has a perfect matchup.
It almost seems too perfect.
Way
Twilight
too
music. So yeah,
it's Cleveland allows the most points to opposing defenses.
Yep.
So
and then Jacksonville
is
the
the best defense. So I expect this to be
It's a great.
Oh, I want to throw this out there. I want to kind of get an over and under from you. 5 interceptions. Cleveland has those 5 interceptions. Over or under?
5 is a big number. I expect a lot. I'm going to say 4. I'm going 4. I'll go under. I'll go 4.
I see Cleveland playing multiple quarterbacks as well.
I do too.
So I'm going to say 5 interceptions, multiple quarterbacks.
One. That's tough.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to say 4. Hopefully they can run the ball a little bit.
I mean, Correll's been playing better, so we'll see. But I doubt he does anything either. But Jacksonville's like a middle of the road run defense. That's the thing. But when it comes to trying to pass the ball and move the ball down the field, not going to happen. So I will say Jacksonville. I also wrote down Arizona, and then my sleeper defense this week is the New Orleans Saints. That's my sleeper defense pick for this week.
Good.
They're at home against Washington, but I just wanted to bring this up. Now I have like one sleeper player I just wanted to bring up for this week. I wouldn't say he's a must start, but I just think I'm going to go with Jeremy Maclin for the Ravens against the Packers.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a sleeper pick. I mean, I don't see it like I see him getting a nice little post route big play up in there.
Our pass defense is pretty bad. I could even maybe see Wallace getting over the top of us. Just sadness.
And I'm curious, to see if they give the official word on if Danny Woodhead returns to the lineup this week too for the Ravens.
That'd be big.
It's a good matchup too for him as well.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, it could be this week or it could be week 12 when Danny Woodhead returns. I did go ahead and pick him up and dropped Buck Allen, which leads us to our next segment.
Sure.
Nice little segue I did there. So we're going to do our buy and sell. So what we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk I have a list of a few players. We're going to give our thoughts, kind of like an outlook opinion on the rest of their season pretty much. But we got a list of a few players. Should you buy into them still, or should you just go?
Just let them go.
Yeah, let them go. Sorry,
Sell
it's
them.
cold in this room, so I'm yawning a little bit. I'm in that comfortable temperature right
cold,
now, so
yeah.
it's a little chilly where we're at right now. But it's like that comfortable weather where I can take a cat nap.
Nice. It's probably like 69, 70
it's
degrees.
Like perfect in here right now. So all right, so first player I want to talk about. Let's talk about Will Fuller, Houston Texans wide receiver. He was, for that little handful of stretch, a top 5 wide receiver.
Oh Lord, he was eating big plays here, big plays there, big plays everywhere.
Yes, Dr.
And then Watson went down, and now he's stuck on the sideline with the cracked rib. I sell him.
Yeah,
happily. I sell him and go get Inman.
I mean, like we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Yeah, Inman. Even for a sleeper pick for me from the Texans, Bruce Ellington.
Or Ellington, yeah.
I mean, look at him.
His replacement, sure.
I mean,
at least for a game.
I mean, Bruce Ellington goes under the radar, and he's basically not owned in 99% of leagues right now. And yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no consistency or consistent volume there with him. So Will Fuller is a guy you'd sell on. Like we talked about this a couple episodes ago. Once Deshaun Watson went down, the Will Fuller stock just plummeted to me. There was no use to keep him. Yeah. The only receiver worth keeping on that team was Hopkins.
Still is.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not going to be pretty for the rest of the way. And now he's got the injury too with the rib. A lot of people are getting their ribs hurt too. They're getting banged up. But yeah, Will Fuller, sell on, drop him. At this point, if you somehow got a trade out of him a couple weeks ago before, when Watson was still playing, if you sold high on him, congrats to you. But if you still got him, there's no point really. I mean, you can keep him for a roster spot if you feel like you need to, but honestly, I don't think there's a point to keep him anymore.
I sell him.
Get rid of the guy. And then,
there's more consistent
that
options.
offense is just pretty bad with Tom Savage
Just
at the
go
helm.
pick a Steelers receiver or
if there's any out there at this point, need to.
yeah.
I mean, if somehow still, if Robbie Anderson is still available in your league, get the guy. If Jeremy Maclin might not be owned in half leagues, so he's about like 50% owned.
Yeah, great matchup this week.
Maclin, go get him. Mike Wallace is another one. Mike Wallace, is he's not consistent, but he's got big play potential, and he's still one of the fastest guys in the league. Next player I'm going to bring up is Marcus Mariota.
I buy. Because Mariota is starting to get healthy and starting to show it. You can see it when you're watching the film. He looks quicker, looks more accurate, looks, stretching the play, stretching the plays, creating more time, creating plays. The running game is working. He's not making mistakes. He's being Marcus Mariota, who you can, and their pass catchers are kind of coming together and getting healthy too. Decker's coming in, doing a little bit.
He is Marcus
Matthews,
and Mariota does have like a
Davis.
He's banged up a little bit. He does have like a little ankle injury. He was limited on Monday in practice. Yesterday, Tuesday, he was a full participant in practice. So I mean, obviously that's a good sign that and he's going to be a clear go for Thursday night against Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh, which is really
Tough
not
matchup.
It's not a good matchup. Pittsburgh allows the second least or third least amount of points to quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't start him for I don't pick him up and keep him for this week. I keep him for the kind of.
He's a guy that should be owned though, in my opinion.
And they have a great pass catching tight end too at Walker, who's just trying to get himself healthy as well.
Yeah, I mean, because once they get through Pittsburgh, I think they got a pretty good stretch of games right here. So they got Pittsburgh on Thursday night. Then next week on week 12 they got Indianapolis, good matchup. Then they got Houston, good matchup. Then they're at Arizona. So that one depend. It's a.
You never know what Arizona's going to pop up.
So that's week 14. Week 15, San Francisco.
That's a great matchup.
And then week 16, last championship week, fantasy football is the Rams at home. He's at home with the Rams. And I will be present for that game in person.
Ooh.
Nashville. We're only 3 hours north of that.
Right.
So yeah, it's I like his outlook for the rest of the season. I mean, there is literally five matchups that are in his favor basically after this Pittsburgh game.
Yeah. So buy him.
Unless he gets hurt, Mariota should be your quarterback. You should have another quarterback that probably averages. You might have a quarterback that averages 300 points because Mariota is a guy you might have waited a little bit to draft because he was originally on my team in our league.
And if you've held on to him or you have him on your team, odds are you have a good quarterback ahead of him because of the injuries he's went through and the things he's went through this season. So maybe if you don't have a quarterback and there is nobody out there, you can get Marcus Mariota for not too much.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can buy into him for low. You can buy low on him too.
If you're still available to trade in your league.
I mean, I traded him away in our league, and I think I got a decent return until basically out of the trade I got back was I got Michael Thomas as the player. Aaron Jones was one of my players I got back in return, but he's out now. And then there was who was the other player? Oh, it was Blake Bortles, and I dropped him though. So basically, my trade that I did involving Mariota was to get Michael Thomas, basically, and that should pay off now. But but that's not talking about my team. So let's move on from that. Okay, so next player I'm going to talk about is back to Baltimore. We're going to go talk about Buck Allen, Javorius Allen, and I'm going to say sell. Reason is Danny Woodhead's coming back. If it's this week or next week, Buck Allen will lose.
So many of them.
There's a lot of running backs there. But they will use as many running backs as they can.
Can we name them all?
Here's the thing, though.
Woodhead, Buck Allen, Alex Collins, and
Terrence West.
Terrence West.
Yeah, but when Terrence West comes back, it's going to be him and Collins.
It'll be the early down.
It'll be between him and Collins, just whoever has the hot hand, because that's how Harbaugh's going to go.
That's going to be tough.
And then your third down back is going to be Woodhead.
I do think Woodhead.
I think Buck Allen just falls out, gets out of the mix. Yeah. They're not a big fan of him. They've been trying to get rid of him or trade him.
He just it's too
They
crowded.
were trying to.
It's too crowded.
He's the guy they want to get rid of. So I say at this point now with Woodhead coming back, sell, because Woodhead was playing good in his first few reps that he had week 1 until he got hurt.
Right.
So Woodhead is a guy you're gonna, if he's available, pick him up and drop Buck Allen for him. That's what I did, and I think it's hopefully a good move, because Baltimore does use their running backs a lot.
Yeah.
They will throw to hit them a lot. So that I think Baltimore as a team, I think they're up there with the Saints as well in terms of throwing to their running backs, in terms of targets. They're up there in top of the league. Next one is Willie Snead.
So
I don't even think we want to get in detail with it.
I don't even talk. Yeah.
He came.
Those
back
running backs
really
are taking some.
Yeah, Kamaro's basically
it's too much value.
Willie Snead is just falling through the cracks. Same with like Kobe Fleener.
Yep.
Sell Willie Snead. He shouldn't even be on anybody's team really at this point. I mean, if you're in a deep league, maybe keep him.
Hoping,
but I mean, he's not going to be in your starting lineup anytime soon.
No.
Unless Ted Ginn gets hurt or Michael Thomas gets
barring
hurt.
Injury, right?
Barring any injuries, but Willie Snead is fantasy irrelevant to me. The next one is running back Mike Gillislee, New England Patriots.
You got to sell him.
At
when
this point,
you're a healthy scratch at the end of the season, on a Bill Belichick team with that many good running backs, and Bill starts the guys that are just doing everything they can to be the best Patriot that they can, if you understand what I'm saying from a team aspect. And got Burkhead coming in, putting on a show and blocking punts and scoring touchdowns and running routes the way he did. Ridley's going to make it hard to get Mike Gillislee back in the starting lineup.
He just hasn't been there since those first.
He's been outplayed by everyone on that.
He scored the 4 touchdowns in week 1 and 2. 3 week 1, 1 week 2, and he hasn't done really nothing since.
James White
and his yards per carry too is not really that high either. It's like 3 yards, barely.
All 3 of the guys that's starting between White, Lewis, and Burkhead are all special teams guys. They're all great backs that can do what New England wants to do, which is let Tom Brady play, and then Tom Brady will decide kind of the grain script. If he gets you the ball, that's great. If he doesn't, then that's sweating it.
Right. So
I sell him.
I'm going to just talk about a couple more players, and that'll be the end of this episode. So the next one we'll talk. I'm going to just say 2.
Sure.
I'm just going to go with 2 right here because these next 2 are wide receivers: Terrell Pryor and Danny Amendola.
Sell Pryor if you haven't already sold him. You can actually don't even sell him; just give him away for free. Or if you can get a ham sandwich for him, that would be great too. Mm-hmm. Just give him away. Just so he's on someone.
Or like your son says, his favorite sandwich, bologna sandwich, because that's how Terrell Pryor's been playing. It's like he's full of bologna.
Yeah. There's not even cheese on that sandwich. There's only there's only half a piece of bread on the sandwich.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of bologna with the string still on it.
Ugh.
And then half a piece of bread.
And then Danny Amendola.
Amendola's a tough one because I sell him because I don't want to play Bellatrix with the receivers or the backs, for that matter. But I don't want to guess who it's going to be scoring touchdowns that week.
Yeah, I mean, and Amendola really hasn't jumped into that role of Edelman like people would have thought. Basically, when Chris Hogan's out there, Chris Hogan's been that top receiver for them. Yeah. Brandon Cooks is up there too as well, and he's been productive.
Those are the guys.
Mind blowing, and then Gronk.
And then
basically whatever running back they decide to play with.
And their running backs have really been playing.
Yeah, so
Amendola plays a slot, but their backs run all the slot routes. So there's no reason for Amendola is kind of just a compliment to the backs, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, plus he's banged up a little bit too. I mean, he's always banged up. He's got a little knee injury going on right now. He only played 27 of the 70 snaps this past game too, so that's really not. I mean, no receiver on that team was going to do much of anything anyways. And then the last 2 players I want to talk about is Tyreek Cohen and Darren McFadden.
Cohen, you sell. He had 1 carry for 10 yards last week. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there would be a slight bounce back. I was tempted. He was dropped in our league, and I was tempted to pick him up, and I kind of opted out of that, thank God.
The game script was even in his favor to come back in and catch some passes, but he didn't get no chances. He hasn't in a while. Ever since Trubisky took over, his fantasy value plummeted.
Yeah.
And it's going to stay down there, unfortunately.
And then McFadden. I'm with you, too, on Cohen. I would sell on the guy.
McFadden, I sell 2. I was telling him too. He had one carry for -2 yards or something.
Yeah, nothing spectacular.
It was very bad debut. He looked like somebody who hasn't played football in 10 weeks. So Zeke was not Zeke. Alfred was obviously the guy to go. He was the next man up, and then Todman. Is it Jordan Todman?
No. Rod Smith.
Rod Smith. God, I can't get this guy's name in my head. Rod Smith came in for passing down, obvious passing situations and passing work, and he did a little bit. He didn't flash anything either. So you roll it out for Morris until someone else shows anything else, and I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I feel like Rod Smith.
But I have some names I like to.
Yeah, he's a deep guy pickup though. Right. You can go and throw him though.
What do you think, Bassell, Zeke? What do you do with Zeke? Comes back on championship weekend at this point. Now he could come back in 4 weeks, but apparently.
I think it's less likely not, because I mean it really goes. This one goes to the Supreme Court of the United States.
The ones who didn't overturn Tom Brady's case.
And this one, it's going to be the 6 weeks, and basically, I mean, you're past the trade. Most leagues are past the trade deadline in their league, so you can't really trade Zeke and try to hornswoggle somebody and say, hey, Zeke comes back week 16. Your team's good. The only way you can trade him is to another good team.
Right.
That has a chance at making your league's championship.
See, my thought process on Zeke is if you do drop Zeke for maybe a bench spot, if you do think that someone deserves that spot, you don't want to hold on to Zeke, because the chances of you making the playoffs are 1-10 or 1-12 or 1 in whatever, whoever's in your league, or even if you're we're not even sure if some teams are making the playoffs. If you have 4 getting in.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it should be the playoff picture in most leagues should be clear. At this point, in our league of 10 people, we got. I mean, 5 of us are already guaranteed.
But if only 4 are going in, I don't think you really know at this point. If you're one of those if you're one of those teams that have 4 teams fighting, or 6 teams fighting, or so.
No, because our
league was top 4,
top 5 teams are basically separated from like 1 game.
Yeah.
You got 3 at 8-2, and then you got 2 at 7-3. And then everyone else has a terrible losing record.
If you do let go of Zeke, the teams that's going to pick him up is probably the team that you're not worried about getting into the playoffs. I think the teams that pick them up is probably somebody with bottom half waiver wire priority.
They'll see his name and they're like, okay, cool. And
yeah,
he might come back, and if he does, he does. If he don't,
get Zeke.
Honestly,
and then you get him for championship week, so it's just a risk that I'm, as a Zeke owner, and I have Morris.
If you got Zeke, I mean, and you have other running backs,
I'm thinking about it.
I feel like you can hold on to Zeke.
Yeah.
But if you're a
team,
if
you need that spot,
if you're a team that needs a spot filled, because if Zeke was your second one of your top 2 running backs, and you don't really have good depth at running back, and there's someone you can find on the waiver wire,
right?
You might as well just drop Zeke for him at this point. It's tough because Zeke's coming back this season. I mean, some teams, their league, like ESPN, like standard leagues, the league championship is week 16 and 17 with how that works there. Because it's ESPN, like if you just do those random sign-up leagues on ESPN, you play your top 4 teams, like make the playoffs. Week 14 and 15 is round 1. And then week 15, or 16 and 17 is your championship week. And you play for 2 weeks to see who has the highest score at the end of those 2 weeks, which I hate that anyways, because most good players don't play week 17 sometimes.
What do you do if you held on to or have picked up Charles Clay by yourself?
I'm selling.
Selling?
Yeah, I'm selling right now. You get Kelvin Benjamin coming there, and I think they're going to try to get him more into the fold. I think Clay will pick things back up, but I don't see him picking it up to the point like how he was a top 5 tight end at the beginning of the season.
Target.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Clay, but
I agree.
I mean, he only had 3 targets.
He's not the only mouth.
He only had 3
anymore.
targets, and he's just really. He might get in the groove of things, but I mean, I feel like you can. If you need a second, if you're one of those people that likes having 2 tight ends on your team, pick him up. I mean, he could be a good. I would say I'm like on the fence. I don't want to say sell him, but I don't want to like buy into him completely.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if you need a backup tight end, you can get him as a backup tight end because you don't have to worry about bye weeks anymore. I mean, but they have. It's not a bad schedule from here on out. You got Chargers, Chiefs, Patriots, Colts, Dolphins, and then Patriots again. But the Patriots defense is not what it was earlier this season. So people, used to say, play anybody or everybody who you got it going against the Patriots. It don't work like that no more.
Yeah.
So
last one I've got is, I think this guy has kind of frustrated owners, but he's rewarded you if you started him in some of these just random weeks. What do you think? I know you're a Rams fan. Sammy Watkins, what do you do with him by yourself?
I'm still selling.
Still selling?
Yeah, just because Robert Woods is a target machine. He
Yeah.
8 receptions. Well, he's a target machine for the Rams. Watkins has basically become a decoy. I mean, he'll get a big play here and there.
Just as of late, he's been a bit more consistent,
last
right?
Couple weeks.
Or you just kind of wait and see?
Yeah, well, I mean, at this point, you really shouldn't wait and see because I feel like he had a touchdown again. So actually, at this point, I would say buy into him, but don't buy too high into him. He's going to be a flex play right now. Still.
Just maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
bench spot. See what he does. See if he picks up.
He had some irritation in his foot, but I mean, he says it's fine. Yeah. So I mean, he didn't really leave. He hasn't really left the game for a long period of time in a while. So. He's out there playing. It's just that Woods has become the guy. He's become that receiver.
Last one I want to talk about is interesting. This last one. San Francisco, they only have one receiving option. His name is Goodwin. He runs really fast. He gets lots of targets and only catches one pass for 81 yards and a touchdown. How do you feel about Goodwin?
If you're in a deep league, buy into him.
Yeah.
If he's out there for some reason, if you're in a deep league, 'cause I mean, if you're in a deep league, someone should own him already at this point. But in a standard league or a smaller team standard, like 10 teams, 12 teams, he's worth a roster spot at this point. I mean, he's the top receiver. I mean, you want a guy who's going to be the top receiver for a team,
right?
And you don't get at this point in the season, you don't find many number one wide receiver ones on the waiver wire.
I agree.
I
think you buy in a good one because of that.
That's
that thought of mine because he's a number one receiver for a team.
And,
even though it's not a great team, he's getting the targets.
I mean, I had Pierre Garçon.
Yeah.
And he was getting the targets, but I mean, he wasn't he didn't even have a touchdown this year. Yeah. He just wasn't spectacular, and then he got hurt.
But he's probably getting 7 or 8 points a game.
Goodwin's been the better receiver in terms of fantasy wise. And if he just had the big play touchdowns.
A lot of teams do like we do and have these nice big bonuses, so that could also help Goodwin's big way. So
Goodwin can be the difference maker in your fantasy matchup.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think we've touched on everything that we want to touch on this Wednesday episode. Starts of the weeks, and if we buy and sell into a select list of players that we checked into at this point in the season.
If you have questions or any comments, something you'd like us to talk about on the show, find us on Twitter. Handle is
FF Ball Wrap Up. That's what it is. Yeah. At FF. Someone else had FF Wrap Up, so I just went ahead and had to put ball in there.
FF Ball Wrap Up. That's us. Ask us, hey, what do you think about this guy? Buy or sell this guy? We're getting down a championship run, so any advice you need at all, don't be afraid to.
Yeah, and we like having conversation with people and stuff like that.
Quick to comment.
And other people chime in. Other fantasy football accounts chime in there too, which is fine too. I mean, the more the merrier. It's always fun to have a nice little conversation, debate on other people's opinions on fantasy football. So, don't think there's anything else that I need to add. Anything else you need to add?
That's all.
All right, and that is a wrap.
Keep listening. Wrap it up.